So Silamai do say God, only is the way of light. So Silamai Helican see, so is the way of might. I say unto you that the way of God in the world carries the might of God within the world. And every way that God works in the might of God in the world, God removes the filth that man has brought before God in all the despicable ways that man has gone in God's world. For God knew that every way that God looked, God saw nothing but decay and filth. And man was reduced to a beast, for he found not the way to be in the goodness and love of your mother and father God. And men behave like beasts on earth, for that is what God showed them in having the beast dwell among men. You are no different to the beast, says God. You have become creatures unto God. And because the children of God did not remember what they were told, they had no way of knowing how to recognize the beast and the many tribes of earth, because they did not listen to what your father and your mother God told them. And so all the children of God walk this world, never realizing that in all the ways that they would dwell on earth, they would dwell among beasts on earth. The wisdom of God in showing man that beast was wherever man was to alert man to his own nature that had ostracized him from God and had kept him always aloof in a world he did not understand. In every way, man became even worse than the beast. He sought to destroy himself, never knowing that whatever he would destroy in that which looks like himself, he would also destroy that which was like God within himself. These things God says to you, the children of God never remembered, for they did not wait for God to teach them how to know the ways of God, how to recognize the way God speaks with them, nor how to know that the will of God is being given to be done in anything. In every way that they were told to come out among them, come out from among them, come out from among them, and they listened not to what we gave it unto you to say to them. So does God now direct the way in which they will come out from among them. For in every way we had given unto you to say to all our children, the time will come when you will find it intolerable to live among the tribes of earth. For God will show them why it was that they ended up in captivity. For they showed no mercy to them in the way in which they treated them. And so every way that the children are given to flee from the lands of the heathens, the Hebrews and the Gentiles, this is the way God speaks to them and through them. We have always said to you to tell them, this is not your home. This earth was never your home. And because you violated the sacred and divine trust of God, you found yourselves strangers in a strange land. And so all the children of God wandered in every part of this earth, never really understanding why they are where they are, nor why it is they're treated the way they are treated wherever they are. They couldn't have known these things because they lost the divine of the mother and the father within them. And without the divine, the truth can never be known. You must always tell them that they had not known what God showed them in any way that God had given, that the things that they were given to see and to know are the things they never really understood. For God showed them that in every way that God works, in every way that man works, God knew that man could never ever come up higher to understand the higher ways of a higher God, nor the higher knowledge of a higher God. And so God knew that man was lost in a world he had not known, could not have known, and will not know. For the children saw what those who came before them left behind. And you must always tell them that the reason that they built tabernacles on earth and opened their vaults to point towards the sun, it was to remind them that they came from the sun, and it is from the sun that they receive all that which is given in the goodness, in the love, and the sacred and divine ways of God to them. They didn't understand why they were living in lands that was always sunshine, because the sun was benevolent to them in their own lands, and the sun gave them everything that they needed from the sand and the seas and the land. The children didn't understand how it is that their land was surrounded by water and water and water, that the vegetation was always lush, and that they were always basking in the sunshine. They did not understand these things because they did not remember that which was taught to them in the way in which they came to be on earth. For God knew that they did not remember that all of earth exists because the sun sends everything to earth. And the earth receiveth that which is from the sun. And the earth transforms what is given from the sun into everything that was necessary for the survival of man on earth. So you see, God knew that no one understood why it is that in all the ways the sun, with all its brilliant lights, directs it to the earth. It directs it to where the children are, because the sun is the God of the children of God. They had no way of knowing these things because they didn't wait. And you tell them, all these books that you read, all these doctrines that you follow, false. Because God showed everyone that no man who could not have received the divinity of the mother or the father created gods can ever know the truth. And none knew the truth. Because God told them it will only be revealed in the end. And all the children walked around saying, this book said that, and that book said that, and this book prophesied that. And God said, who can prophesy other than God? Who can prophesy other than God? All these things that God told them that they followed are all the false doctrines God told them they would find from deceivers who would deceive them into falsehoods. And there's nothing that man did that was ever pleasing in the sight of your Father and Mother God. God looked at this world, saw how changed it became, and knew that all that man brought before your God was filth, and nothing but filth. And every way that you will speak and teach and preach, you will say the things that we have given unto you to say. You have brought nothing but filth before my Mother and Father God. Everywhere God looked, God saw nothing that was ever pleasing in the sight of your Father and Mother God. And God told the children of God, because you followed them in their ways, you too brought nothing but filth before God, because every one of you violated the trust of God, and every one of you went in all the wayward ways God told you you should never go. God did not give man any of these ways. And God knew that every way that it is despicable to man, it is despicable before God. When it's displeasing to you, it is displeasing to God. Tell them these things. When you are angered at what you saw, it is the way God is also angry at what God saw. Because God gave it man a world that was bright and beautiful. A world that always resonated with the joy of God in the greatness of God. and the love and perfection and peace of God. God didn't give you this world. And every way that the children went, oh, pray for this one and pray for this one, God said, you don't see what are we showing you? Every way that we're telling you, get out from among them, we are showing you what we're doing to them, and you're saying, pray for who? You can't pray for yourselves, much less pray for anybody else. You survive because of God's grace. God answered through the servants of God from the higher realms of the Spirit the things that you had asked of God, because God knew you couldn't come to God except you come through the Son of God. When you didn't know who the Son is and you didn't know how the Son would be, you couldn't come to God. And so you didn't know God, because God did not give anyone in this world to know God. That's all these foolish ideas that man has in his head. I met with God, I talked with God, God told me this, God told me that. How do you know God? How could you ever know God? When you know not who you are, how could you know God? Because God told everybody, the image and likeness of God is within you. Ask any man, show me how you know the image and likeness that is of God in you. If you can't know that, you can't know the God that giveth you the image of God. And so they always didn't understand what we said unto them. You will be deceived by deceivers. And all over the world, God shows man. He followed every creed and every doctrine that led him in the wrong way, and always showed him that he would end in the perishing way. There is never a man who came here that did not end up in a cemetery. And God gave man cemeteries in every part of earth to show man how foolish he had been, that in every way that he created his cemeteries, he created his gardens of sorrow. For God said unto you, say unto them, go and look in any cemetery. You are always cultivating it to look beautiful. And God said that is the way you're worshiping the dead, because the corpse has nothing to offer you. It is finished. It has no life in it. It can do nothing. It is useless to God, therefore it is useless to you. And all men saw what God showed them, that wherever they went into the cemeteries, they always created the cockle shells that always looked as a garden of sorrow. God says to you, tell them, you should have spent your time cultivating the world of the living, where everywhere was bright and beautiful, and where everyone was at peace with God. For that is why you go into the cemetery. You can hear nothing. All that you are in a cemetery is silence. And God knew that the whole world had not understood what God was showing them. You have created a garden of Gethsemane in the land of the living, and you live as the living dead in the land of the dead. All these things we say to you, that you may say to the children, because God is now orchestrating the second exodus of the children. And you will tell them, you will see the power of God. You will know the might of God. For whoever believes that they will stay where they are because they want to cling to what they have, God will show you why God warned every one of you, do not store any treasures up on earth. Do not store any treasures up on earth. God says, tell them, all of you that think you're living fancy lives and high lives and secure lives, in all the lands of the heathens and the Hebrews and the Gentiles, know ye that God's warning went out to you. because God showed you that in every part of this earth, man is fleeing from what he has. God said, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. Tell them, God is talk just to call you. Anyway, you talk, God is talk. Because who gave you to speak the way you have been speaking or do speak, except that God gave it to you? And God said, tell him, when the ras got a cuss, God said, God will cuss your ras as well, because y'all didn't understand where all the words in this world come from. Because you're so stupid, because you didn't recognize. You can't create nothing except God creates it from you. Because God always shows you a corpse can't create nothing. You can do what you do because of God within you. And whenever the children used to cuss, they didn't understand that it was God saying, when God is angry, God does not respect anybody. And so God says, you tell them. And you will cuss them when you start to speak in the way in which we send you. Because God always tells you, respect no one. And you will respect none. Because man will then know that there is a side to God that he did not understand. There's a side to God he did not know. And everywhere your God told man, you must fear God, God got a terrible side to God. Don't you ever tempt that side to God. God said, they're listening, but they're not hearing. But they will hear soon. They will hear soon. Everything that is set to come to this world will turn the lives of men upside down, turn the ideas of men inside out too. Because all those who believe they knew God and they knew the doctrines of God and they knew the truth about God will come to recognize that they were always deceived by the things that was given to them. You can't know God because God didn't give you to know God. And in every way that this world is going to be turned upside down and inside out, God will show everybody all these things that you all accumulated in this life and placed your faith and trust in. These things will the Lord thy God destroy before your very eyes. And God will show you that every way that you walked in the conceit of the things that were going to perish on earth, you walked in the folly of the deception that was given into you. God says the time comes when you will speak to everyone, even the tribes of earth. And the things that we have given unto you to say to them, you will say it, and fear will be in the hearts of men, because God knows the way to drive fear in the hearts of men. Let the children of God do the things that we give from you to them to do, because God tells you, tell them. Tell them. When you're not here, you're going to feel. When you're not here, you're going to feel. Because God always tells the children, talk the way you always talk. Because God does talk the same way too. When you're not here, you feel. And God always shows them. Whenever the feeling of pain and suffering comes to them, then is when they recognize that they did not hear. And for some of them, it will be too late. It will be too late. They have become comfortable. They have become comfortable in the life that is an illusion that they live. And God will take the illusion from them. Because every material thing in this world that they pursued in this world is the illusion that they created for themselves of having a good life. And God knew that they really didn't understand what was shown to them. You're living an illusion. And so when God said to them, when the scales shall be removed from your eyes, you shall then see that which you have not before been given to see. And the scales that God removes from their eyes is the illusion that they had about living the good life. God sends and brings and brings and sends and sends and brings and brings and sends. And every way that you have spoken, and we continue to give you to speak, let the children of God know that the time has come for them to depart from the lands of the heathens, the Hebrews, and the Gentiles. Return to your homelands. Return to your homelands. For again, God says, tell them, it is the safe sanctuary of God unto you. Return to your homelands.